How we doing, guys? Myself, Preddie OBE, hitting you with a quick one. Real talk, true season. Now, I wanted to discuss Top Boy, guys. At first, I wasn't going to watch it because I felt like it was too much glorifying the gang culture, glorifying knife and gun crime. But there was a few bits that even I watched and I had to take heed on it. And I do advise any parents or do advise any teachers that's out there that wants to have a better understanding of why young people do what they do and the reasons why they're on the streets and the reasons why they're stabbing each other and the reasons why they're feeling lost within the sense of depression and turmoil. And there's a lot of things that they're taking on which we don't understand. And I think that show really depicted a couple of things that I want to touch on today. And I want to give these young people a little story time about my life and how I felt. And one of the stories that I wanted to touch on, there was a young boy in Top Boy that, you know, his mum was getting deported and his mum was always trying to work. She always tried to work and she didn't have citizenship. So they said that she couldn't work. And you watch that young child look at his mum and not know where to do, not know where to turn. Do you know what I mean? He's 11 years old, he's 12 years old, he's in secondary school and he's sitting there thinking, right, I've got to step up for my mum. He started off with selling burgers and then he realized, you know, selling burgers, getting £5-6 wasn't enough for his mum. Then he started saying, don't worry, mum, don't give me school money. And then he started stealing school lunches from the young boy's bag. And then it got to a stage where, you know, one of the older kids come up to him and said, look, man, you can do something. The same thing that I said to you guys in my story in the sense of putting on a backpack and just going down the road and getting some money for it. And the guy was like, wow, like I can now help my mum. So we can look at a situation when you see a young person selling drugs and all the rest of it and be like, rah, they're bad kids and what's going on in their parents and sometimes their parents are in that household and they're trying to do the best that they can and they don't even want to take that money, but sometimes they feel like they have to. And the reason why I wanted to share my story is because I remember there was a time when I was growing up and my mum was struggling. And my mum wouldn't know this, but I remember there was times when I used to watch, not even watch, I used to listen to my mum cry about the bills that she had to pay for, and she used to always put on a strong face. So every time we saw her, she was always like, no, it's cool, it's fine, all the rest of it. But there was nights when I heard my mum cry, and there was nights where I saw my mum go without, you know, like on a slide. You know what I mean? We all be eating dinner and you look at your mum, like, mum, why aren't you eating? She's like, oh no, I'm gonna eat something later. But really and truly, there was no more. Do you know what I mean? There was only enough for us. And that's when I started to get older, and when that guy D approached me and said, yo, Chris, I felt like an obligation of I wanted to step up, I wanted to help my mum, I wanted to support my mum. And that's how a lot of these young people get groomed in of sometimes the media, sometimes the fashion, sometimes of things that you don't have and you feel like you want, or things that, you know, just minuscule things of I just need to eat, I just need to get day to day, I just need to get through the day without, you know, being hungry, without being lost or feeling faint and stuff like that. So some of these kids, you've got to take heed on the sense of some of their lifestyle. And I think Top Boy really broke down some issues that really touched base to me. Do you know what I mean? I left home when I was 16, you know, because I thought I was a big guy. And when I left home to a world that a lot of these young people are unfamiliar with or unknown with. You don't know that kind of world until you're in it. So a lot of the time, it's always on the outside of looking in. It's always scary and wow and what you're doing. But when you're in it, it's the most disheartening thing that you can even describe, because it's like you don't know any better. So you don't even know that you're living a horrible life. You don't even know you're living a wrong life because everybody around you is in the same pot. You're around crackheads, you're around fiends, you're living in broken homes, broken windows, your friends don't got no dads, you know, their mum's working tirelessly, sometimes their mum's on drugs. So a lot of people around you is just a day-to-day thing. It becomes the norm. It becomes something that, well, this is my life, Chris. This is the way it goes. And that was the same for me. I was like, this is my life. This is the way it goes. And I was living in a hostel. I got involved in the wrong crowd. I started selling drugs. I started hanging around with the wrong boys, the bad boys and everything. But then you sit there and say to yourself, well, Chris, how did you get yourself into that? And if not, how did you get yourself out? And to be quite honest with me, I got myself into it because I didn't see, though. I used to always say to myself, what wrong is more right? What wrong is more right? Like, all right, cool, I'm selling drugs and all the rest of it. But at the same time, I used to sit there and be like, oh, I'm not killing anyone. But that was the facts and the reality of my life at that time. So I just knew that I needed help, but the help wasn't somebody in my family. The help wasn't someone like my friend. The help ended up being external. So a lot of the times, it is that external youth worker. It is that teacher that can reach out sometimes and have a word, because you feel like you don't want to tell your friends that you're broke. You don't want to tell your friends that you haven't got no washing, or you can't wash your clothes, or you can't even wash your skin. You don't want to tell your mum that. You don't want to tell your sister that, because if I tell my mum, I feel like I'm putting more pressure on her, or things that she doesn't have. I don't want to tell her that I need a new pair of trainers. So a lot of the times, we ended up taking on issues that sometimes we shouldn't have been taking on as young people. And young people are doing exactly the same thing, taking on issues that they shouldn't be taking on because they don't have that right support, or because that mother don't have that right support. So I just wanted to flip it and touch base, because a lot of people have been talking about Top Way and everybody's been liking it like it's power and glorifying it, and however you take it. But I do think something that it needs to take heed, and even now to your young people, like, take heed of the hierarchies of, even though you feel like you're doing it for the right reason, or you might try to be helping your mum, or you might feel like this is all I can do, but just look at what happens. You know, you get yourself caught up, man want to run up in your yard, man's chasing you down on bikes. Even that young boy that was getting immigrated, the boy tried to he ended up snitching on his friend. He put some guns into his friend's house because he needed the money, and then the boy that ended up getting snitched on, one of his friends tried to run up into his mum's house and tried to kill him. But these are the kind of things of how easy it is to get linked in, to get caught up, and not having that right support, not having that right guidance, and then before you know, you're falling in the wasteland. So I just wanted to take heed on it. I thought it was very, very worked out in the sense of the questions that need to be answered. You know, the ones there, the county lines, you know what I mean, on the reasons why people go up to county lines, and the strain and the struggle and the lack of opportunities, the lack of jobs, the reasons why people are just literally violent and running around crazy, because there isn't nothing for them to do. Like I said, there's no playgrounds, there's no football pitches, there's no youth clubs, there's no inspiration, there's no opportunities. So eventually it gets to a stage where drugs, money and violence becomes the main topic of our young people's commonator, do you know what I mean? And social media just fuels that, do you know what I mean? And in the sense of the glitz, the glamour, what you have and what you don't have. Everybody wants to be cool, everybody wants to be in, all the girls are top girls and all the boys are top boys, and it just goes to show that we need to start taking better heed of what we're putting out there, what our young people are seeing, but at the same time taking heed on some of the lifestyles that they're living in and they can't change. That's coming down to government, that's coming down to communities, that's coming down to a lot more things that it's just a little bit more deeper than the surface, just for us to just say, oh, these kids are bad. Because watching that, it does make me look back on my past and say, wow, Chris, you had a hard road, you had a long road, and if I didn't have certain people in place to pull me back home, to show me inspiration, to give me hope, then what would I have? I would have been exactly the same as them on the streets right now. So guys, I just wanted to do a post to you guys, and you say to you kids as well, like, thank you, man. Thank you for still trying to strive to be better. Thank you for still trying to get up every morning and do your dream. Thank you for going to school. Thank you for taking that time out to check in on your mum. Thank you for taking that time out to say, do you know what? I'm going to try and be better. Even if I'm naughty, you don't get things right all the time. You're going to make mistakes, but I want you to understand, don't keep making the same mistake. Make sure you understand that being proud and being bold and being big, it doesn't always come with a knife. It doesn't always come with a gang. Sometimes it just comes with you being you. You're the most unique thing on the planet. So why would you try and be someone else? Everybody wants to be an MC. Everybody wants to be a rapper. Everybody wants to be the next Nicki Minaj. You are you. No one's got your fingerprint, you know? Nobody. Imagine that. Nobody's got your fingerprint apart from you. Nobody walks like you. Nobody talks like you. Nobody looks like you. So why would you want to look like anybody else? Look like yourself and be yourself.